I'll start with this because I've been a user of machines for many, many years. I've used many modules, many different modules, especially in, let's say the emulator sector. The VL70M, physical modeling. I own a Dynasample Expression, great machine. I've tried various emulators from different companies, some better, some worse to me. I always had an issue with digital instruments, personally. Meaning VSTs, audio units, and this type of plugins, synthesizers. But as a fan of the VL70M, as a fan of physical modeling, I came across Respiro. And for me, Respiro stood out. And as a different thing than the rest of the VSTs, audio units that I played before, by two reasons. The first reason was the quality of the sound, to me, is something which I really, really enjoy because it doesn't emulate particularly an instrument, but emulates the character of the instrument. So it's not like we're listening to something, a flute, a clarinet, but more like, what clarinet is this? Or what is this? This is ambiguity, super like, whoa. So that's one thing. And the second thing, which I found about Respiro to be extraordinary, is the fact that it can play from zero. Right. Literally from the beginning of a sound. So especially in a diminuendo, coming from loud to soft, when you go down, you can really, really finish the phrase.
Dynamics.
Yeah, really to the end. And something that I don't experience, I must say, with other synths in general. But with this one, I do.
Glad to hear this.
So,
I can explain you how and how I got there actually, because as you, I'm as well a big fan of the VL70, a nice module containing quite some inventions coming from the Stanford University by Julius Smith and Perry Cook, and they worked together with Yamaha, and then they constructed this module. So I have this module as well, and actually it inspired me to start up a project to build something similar or even better on a computer. So I then contacted Luigi from Noise Softing, because the synths that he was using or is using, they were leaning into some physical modeling directions that I said, this is a guy that knows what he's talking about. So and then a young developer like Jelle Bakker from GB Audio. So and together I funded a project to build up Respiro. Now the main intake for Respiro was that it had to work perfectly for wind controllers. So initially I had even a goal to say, let's try to do the same thing like the VL. But oh boy. So we really designed everything where pressure was actually the driving force for the synth. And you can take every other synth out there, they always start with note on, note off, and velocity. That's the main starting point.
Right.
While Respiro, the starting point was breath. If breath comes in, what do? We don't have a note yet. Yeah, but so what do we do? So that's the type of questions we have. If breath is between 0 and 2, should it sound already? Yes or no? Yes, of course it should sound. And that's what you're already feeling, because you're saying, okay, I'm grabbing this and I'm blowing, and the sounds start happening. Actually, I figured out that my WX wind controller is only starting to send as of value 10. And a lot of WX controllers have this issue. So the Akai seems to be better in terms of nicely building up from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 127. So that was one of the goals, is really to design something that can react on pressure in a natural way. And then we took some time to see, okay, can we model it so we can simulate saxophones and everything. But after a while, after many iterations, I said, this is wrong. Something is wrong in our strategy, in our way of thinking. Why would we simulate the sax? Why would we simulate trumpets and everything? Respiro sounds nice like it is now. Let's not try to do more. It's the important thing is that we get an organic response, that it actually inspires and provokes interaction. And that you get connected to it, that you feel if you play that you are connected to the sound source. And that's a big difference I feel with a lot of other synthesizers out there. It's the computer makes the music and the sound for the musician. While for me it should be the musician that makes the sound. And that's where I always feel a big difference. There are already very good synths on the market that getting very close to that other relationship, but mostly the relationship is like it's like the computer does the work, is making the sound, and you feel not really connected. And Respiro, my goal is that that Respiro gives you what you put in it. So some people are asking, for example, Eli Benakot, a big friend in Israel as well, somebody you know, and they say, oh, hey, the way he plays the Respiro with the duduk and everything, I want the same sound. I said, it's there? Yeah, but it's not, it doesn't sound the same thing like Eli is doing. I say, yeah, but it's the way he's playing, the way he does his attacks, the way he's doing his note transition. And Respiro reacts in a different way, and he probably did set some curves differently and everything. So you have to tune Respiro as an instrument, like a real world instrument, and make it work for you. Right. That's why I think Respiro is making a big difference versus the other synths. And to be honest, since the product is live, I did learn a lot, really a lot, from existing wind controller players, and as well from traditional musicians that now starting to adopt more and more the digital wind controllers. Right. And they have another view on how it all should look and feel and sound. So my next generation of synthesizers would go even a step further than what Respiro is doing. So, but that's for later.
That's for later. Okay, I understand. Was it a conscious choice for you to follow the footsteps of the VL70 into Respiro, or?
Well, I'm not how do you say that, a programmer I'm just somebody who is obsessed by sound, and I needed to have a point of reference.
I see.
So after studying a lot of research, we saw that Stanford University, the books from Julius Smith, the material, all the research out there was a great starting point. So we then downloaded the SDK, so it's actually a development kit that he's providing to his students, saying, okay, voila, here you have a base code for simulating a reed. Here you have the code for simulating this and that. And then we started to take that and starting to understand how this all hangs together and why is this working, because physical modeling, particularly the reed, it's all about energy. So you're with mathematical formulas, you're managing energy in a sound source, in a digital sound source, and pressure is actually giving, is managing that energy. So if you blow, you're actually stimulating a formula which is simulating the reed vibration. Okay. So, and the harder you blow, the more you can even overload it, overdrive the reed and everything. And then that signal is then going into what a kind of body, a kind of resonating mechanism. And that is then we again feed back into the reed and then go back. So actually the energy is circulating constantly in the model based on how much pressure you're giving. Okay.
I see.
And that's what we did learn from the Stanford, and then we started to add things that say, yeah, but it's missing something. So we added a kind of reed feedback mechanism, another extra mechanism, other kind of modifiers. We used zero delay filters, we used all the type of filters, we used phase inversions. So there's a lot of parameters out there, and it's a lot of people are asking, can we have the deep editor? But it's designing a sound with physical modeling. It's like alchemy, you know. I always say that it's like if you put the right drop of this and the right grams of that, and if you have all the right combination, and suddenly, wow, magic is happening. but if you do the wrong drop, even if everything else is okay, but if you do the wrong drop, then bang! And really, my monitors here,
You already changed a couple, you mean?
Yeah, initially you couldn't use a headset,
Right.
because if the model blows up, then I can tell you it's because it's energy. So we really had as well mechanisms built in after a while to control the energy in such way. So I did learn a lot together with the team, and as well an important input we got was from Pedro Eustache. So Pedro Eustache is a famous artist, you know him. So he's mastering many wind instruments, and and he was actually keeping the team motivated, because we worked very hard on that almost 2 years with my own budget. And after a while, my budget did get out because I couldn't pay anymore for getting extra development support. So I brought it on the market in April, I think, last year. Yeah. And then together with input from wind controller players, I started to further improve it up to a point where it's now today. And Pedro, he did give a lot of suggestions and ideas. And as well, he's using it in his concerts with Hans Zimmer on stage. So that's why I'm doing things. I love if musicians really get the satisfaction of a sound, and they are even prepared to bring it for a big audience or use it in film tracks or everything. That keeps me going. Okay, the money is important, but it's really that type of how to say that seeing that musicians really saying, "Oh, this is something new. It's not something I need to be afraid of. I can install. I can plug in my wind controller, and I'm playing. And I can make. And if they send me soundtracks, musicians, if they want to motivate me, send me soundtracks. I love it. It's true. That's if I can wake up in the morning and I see a musician say, "Oh, by the way, Rudy, I made this and that and that," and wow, and then I'm listening very carefully, because I learn a lot from the audio tracks that I'm receiving, and that's because one of the challenges I still have with, and that's typical for physical modeling, and as well a problem with the VL70, is the note transition. So it's a very, very difficult challenge in a physical modeling. It's because you're actually dynamically changing the pipe. Okay. So what do you do with that energy at that moment? That whole transition of playing fast between notes or slow, or having a long distance between notes. So what happens? You're playing a note, for example, and you even have that with the real sax. That if you play a note and then you want to jump to another note, that you feel that the sax needs a little bit more push in order to fall in the other regime. So because the energy and the resonation of the lower frequencies are still there, and then if you want to switch over to another one, you get the kind of overtone syndrome and things like that. And that's the same thing for physical modeling. If a certain frequency is dancing around in the model, and then you want to jump to another frequency, what do you do with the energy that is still out there? You see? So, and that's a complete different ball game versus sampling. Sampling, what you do is you actually trying to replicate as much as possible layers of how to say that, the dynamics in the sound, and trying to cover that into samples by note. So and then of course you have the audio modeling team. They figured out another way of dealing with that, and that's a great job they did there. So I think the perfect combination would be actually both worlds, physical modeling merged into kind of sampling. Or
yeah, I can definitely evidence that by saying, that personally for me, I besides my own musical projects, I do also theater work, and I got hired because of Respiro.
Whoa, that's good news.
It's really that's the truth. I there's one band which I work with where the music is very very sparse and dynamic. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
And the general vibe is very low in dynamics, or very soft. The music is super soft, And I remember when I showed up to the audition, I showed up with all my gear, and I have a truckload of stuff that I can bring to a gig if I wish. And I came with everything, and I played them everything I have, and they said, play Respiro. Don't play anything else. Play Respiro.
It's interesting to hear that, because it's Pedro told me the same thing. He is invited by a lot of film music producers and everything, and mostly the first thing they ask is, please play your duduk. But then, so Pedro is saying, I have other tools, I have much better things. So then, okay, he starts with his, but can you give me some time and let me play something else?
Yeah.
And then he's opening his magic computer and starts playing with Respiro, and then,
well,
they said, this is new, this is different, this is fresh. And that's the nice thing. Why would I start emulating again existing sounds, existing instruments? Let's make something fresh and new, and that still is playable. And that's what is the nice thing. My goal is really to continue introducing kind of next generation synths, next generation hardware for wind players, and as well lower the barrier for the traditional musicians to get more comfortable with the wind controller world, because it's still a big jump. We need to be honest. Some musicians have it easier to make a switch, but particularly because the computer makes people scares musicians off. That's what I saw. And
I'm one of them.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges we had, is saying, oh, such a complex thing like Respiro. How can I make this simple? So that's the reason why we made a very simple but intuitive system that is actually on top of all the hundreds of parameters. So by moving a macro, you're maybe moving 10 sliders behind it, but they ensure that the model stays in balance. So if you say I move more like that, then because as a sound designer, okay, if the user wants to do this, then we better bring this down and that is up, otherwise it's starting to get crazy. So and the other thing is out of the box principle. So install, connect your wind controller and play. That's a very important thing for me. Try to find a synth on the market that is doing that for the wind controllers, or very little. And then the other thing is latency.
Right.
Latency. it's very important that now with the Respiro, which is out there, if you put it in mono mode and if you disable the reverb, on my machine here I can go to 16 samples and it still plays.
Okay.
So this means less than 0.3 milliseconds. So
yeah, that's yeah.
And then the other nice thing, which a lot of people still didn't discover yet, is the high resolution Midi input. So
Right.
yeah, the
You know,
EVC.
I have so much. I must say personally, you know, I what is it all about?
Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, well, you would wonder actually why would you use that because Respiro is smoothing out very nicely the breath input. So if you blow in a wind controller, then the low resolution Midi what it does, it sends 0 up to 127 steps. So it's mini
Right.
steps chick, for your breath. So your breath dynamic is cut into 128 steps, right?
Right.
If you switch to high resolution mode, then you actually go up to 65,000, more than 65,000 steps. What is that as an advantage? It means your breath is much more smoothed out. It's like if you listen to an MP3 versus if you listen to a FLAC or if you listen to low resolutions music versus high. So you have less steps, okay? Although Respiro itself is already smoothing out everything, by having this input, you have the advantage that you can play, not with all sounds for Respiro, but many sounds, and the lower range. So if you want much more control playing very soft, that's where high resolution comes in the picture. It's you have a much richer and wider how to say that influence on the sound, particularly if you use a wind controller and with analog equipment, then you will feel that normally a lot with analog equipment, the high resolution input, and that's what you will see more and more coming up. We see more and more advanced MIDI controllers on the market. We see Midi 2, version 2, which is out there. So there is a growing potential on controllers for high resolution. I'm using, for example, an instrument controller, which I love it. And it provides features like high resolution MIDI input and everything, output, but how many synths can deal with that, you see?
So, I see.
Yeah, and that's what you now will see. The hardware is evolving so fast that the synthesizers itself have to step up. And you will see a new generation of plugins and synths coming on the market that are actually designed to deal with all those extra capabilities that are coming on the market because a lot of older synths will not be able to follow anymore. And actually I have that. I have already users saying, but Rudy, if I'm loading Respiro and if I'm playing with this control and everything, then my DAW is getting a little bit, because it's designed still on MIDI 1. The MIDI buffers can't handle all that volume on data,
right.
Particularly if you do breath. You're pumping data, enormous data, right? So if you then have 1, 2, 3 or 4 tracks loaded with all synthesizers that react on pressure, can you imagine what the DAW has to start processing? So in the 80s and in the 90s that was not the case, but now but still those plugins are there. So that's you will see a big. I think next year will be a year where we will see a lot of changes happening.
I know that you're also busy with different controllers that you test Respiro with. Are there any particular controllers which you find suitable for Respiro, or maybe a different word? I don't know.
Well, yeah, there are. because Respiro is pressure based, we decided initially saying why can't we implement support for MPE, although it's a monosynth, but MPE is all pressure driven by note. So we started to think about that. So we did put the foundation in place. Respiro works very nice on the instrument MPE device.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should try. It's I have some videos on YouTube, old ones, but I love it, particularly when you start loading multiple tracks where you can then use the lower notes as a drone and then start. But you're giving as well that pressure. But it's for me, it's not the same as sending pressure with the mouth.
Right.
If you blow with the controller where you can blow into, you have a deeper connection because music, the distance between your musical idea and the output is shorter. Your mouth is one of the most important way of expressing things. So I'm even having projects for that as well, the Photon, which we maybe talk about later. Right?
Sure.
So, but controllers like the Seaboard, from Rolly, the instrument, that now we have Osmose as well, from which looks very nice. So all those they are pushing the synth world a step up, and Respiro can handle it pretty nice. Of course, it's a monosynth, and that's a complaint from a lot of people when they start playing keys. They want polyphony, which is understandable. So, but my instinct was actually a wind control player, so I say, yeah, if you blow a saxophone, you don't have polyphony.
Yeah.
So anyway, so.
And I assume all the wind-driven controllers. I mean, the Iwi, WX. The Roland.
There is no controller out there.
And there's also the Emeo, which you started working with, right?
Yeah, the Silvio, which works. Actually, the Silvio works very nice in that sense that from all the breath sensors that I worked with, this is one of the top, I think.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, very well done in terms of sensitivity and everything. As well technology-wise, and I don't have any contract or relationship with
of course, no.
But okay, they sent me controllers because they said, can you give it a try? Can you see that it works with Respiro? Because we have customers asking, so automatically I'm getting a feel with everything. So and the Silvio is very nice in terms of the I think it's actually the top as well in terms of technology.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right. Okay.
Except for me, it's designed for flute players, and I can't find my way in it. So, but I saw other musicians playing with the Silvio, and it's, once you get it in your fingers, I think if you're a good musician, you play on everything. But I'm not a musician. I'm just I'm just obsessed with
theoretically,
sound.
Yes,
yeah, but it's amazing what some. So yeah, the Silvio is good. The Emeo, which is a nice thing starting to happen as well. So it's
wow.
I have a few ones here. So I'm working as well with the Emeo team. So the nice thing is the real feel that you get of a real sax. It's actually a real sax body, full with patented technology to capture actually your whole fingering. So I like that because one of the things I'm missing with the many controllers out there is the character. Is the I say that the soul it has. You know, if you look to a saxophone, or
the feel in your fingers and the touch of the instrument in your hand.
But if you say this versus this,
right? No, I hear what you mean.
Right? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, okay, in terms of as a musician, if you are on stage, you want to have something in your hands and nearby your mouth that you are proud of and that you say, this is something I can love. And I know people who love the EVs and things like that, but still that connection with something real mechanical, that's my personal preference. Not everybody is on the same line here, but okay.
It's funny, you know, because first of all, something I can very much relate to, because I own I own all the EVs, all the models, you know, and for me still, on your hand to hold the EV1, the EV1000 is, let alone, you know, the sound, let alone whatever, but just the feel of the instrument in your hand. And just by, you know, and even though before we had this conversation, I had the chance to play a lyricon. Whatever the sound is, whatever the idea is, but the touch of the thing in your hand, to feel it, to hold it, it's
that something is in those instruments. If it's real, that it makes your brain work different, I think.
I guess so.
While you're playing, because you have that haptic interaction, that you say, this feels nice, this feels right. It's like the instrument starts speaking as well, and that's like with a real instrument. If you play a saxophone, a flute, a trumpet, you feel that interaction, and that's what I personally miss with a lot of wind controls. I think there will be a time where you gonna have controllers on the market that are clever enough and that give you as well feedback. But now it's a lot of controller is just one way direction. And if you understand what I mean?
You mean in the sense of hearing yourself back?
If you play sax, what happens? You feel the air coming back in the mouthpiece and in your mouth. You get that. You're actually part of the sound.
Right.
Your oral cavity is part of the sound.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's hooked up with you, and same thing with flute players. It's the resonation, the air chamber, the jet that is happening. It's all part your body, your mouth, even it's all part of the sound. So
this is
and that's missing, I think. It's a way of expression which is only possible with real instruments. And yeah, I wish we have solutions already for that, but
I totally agree with you. You know, for me, one of the things that concept-wise, when I play Iwi in my case, I always have this idea that I don't create the sound, but I control the sound.
Voilà.
So
that's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
So to be able to create the sound is definitely something like you said right now. This is something
to be part of the sound. To be part of the sound, yeah. And as well, one of the things is if you're on stage and you're playing a real instrument, you feel it and you hear it. While if you play a wind controller with it comes out of the speakers. If you understand what I mean, or you need to have very good monitor in front of you that you hear, because that's one of the things I experienced when I was doing some live stuff, is saying, where am I? What's happening? So you have the guy playing a contrabass, you have somebody playing a guitar, and they hear the sound. But if you're playing a wind controller, you either have to have a headset on or a good monitor in front of you. So that connection on stage is even more difficult than in the studio.
Of course.
But I'm working on solutions for that. So
exactly. The Photon mouthpiece.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's exact. Let's talk about that for a second. Explain a bit. What is it about?
Well, like I said, for me the mouth, and not just for me as well, for Pedro and Chris, the mouth is one of the most expressive parts of the body. And before I talk about the Photon itself, I want to talk about how it actually started to come up. So as a VL70 developer, because I made a big, deep editor called VL Wizard for the VL70, I grabbed the attention of Pedro Estache, who is now my big friend. So many years ago already. So he said, "Oh, really lovely." There's all. So Pedro is always busy with very innovative stuff as well in music. So he supported me on that part. And then later on, he captured for me the idea of Respiro. So he as well pushed and helped me on that. And then he said, "Rudy, you're so passionate about sound and everything. I know a guy in Canada." That is working on a mouthpiece for many years. It stopped, it started, it stopped, it started, but it's again parked, and I want to bring you in touch. Maybe you can pick up the project together with him and everything. So he did bring me in touch with Chris Graham, who is the inventor of the Photon. He worked now more than 15 years on this. So in his own lab, you know, it's really a person who is like Niall Steiner, but less public. He's in his corner and really. So Chris did work on that, and one of the problems that Chris discovered from in the beginning is saying, the most important part of the body, the mouth, is not used to control digital music. And as well, Pedro did provide him a lot of input in terms of the ideas that Pedro had about how to capture many expressions and everything. So Chris started to work on that, and I got connected with him. We got good friends as well. So we are now a kind of trio where we have Pedro, Chris, and myself. So that's what you need to see. If I talk Emox Plus, that's more or less it. So we are kind of the center of kind of think tank and innovating, because we have plenty of ideas. So, and then we have other people around us, and that are as well part of the think tank, that can give input and in contact with the audio guys, with Timeo, with the travel sax guy, with the vendor, with the Berglund, Noevi, Neurath. Everybody who is making wind controllers I know. And if I don't know, then I have a problem, because I want to know them. So if they see this video, please contact me. So, and one of the things I'm seeing consistently coming back is very nice wind controllers out there, very nice concepts, very nice ideas, but the mouthpiece is a problem. So Chris had a solution on that, but he didn't find a person to talk with and to interact with and to bring it into reality. And that's where I'm coming in the picture. So I'm now working with Chris already 2 years on this. It started more or less at the same time or later than the Respiro. And we went already to many iterations. So we distributed some beta version or test versions. So this is the Photon version 1. Actually, I think it's version 100 already for Chris, but this is a version where I made about 20 prototypes and I'm circulated, and it has strengths and weaknesses. So we are now working on Photon version 2, which I will not show yet, because this will be the real thing, where we incorporate a lot of learnings from Photon 1. Now, where does this make a big difference? That's the big question, right? Because breath controllers, there are a lot out there. So the first thing is, this is a real controller. It has a processor on board, a Midi processing everything, a very complex thing with a lot of intelligent stuff. Second thing is the breath out. So if you blow, we measure that. But if you inhale, so if you take air, right, then we measure that as well. So you can blow and suck, and that sends a controller. The position of your tongue is measured with light. So we are scanning the oral cavity, and we are seeing how far or how close your tongue is versus the tip of the photon. We are as well measuring the lower lip tension. Okay, so the way of like with the real reed on a saxophone, and you need to grab it and you need to make sure you're in pitch, in tune. So that's the reason why the lower lip, it's not a bite, it's really a lower lip control. Okay. Now, additionally, we are measuring the vocal amplitude. So when you blow and you do ooh, right, so the level of the sound you're making is as well a controller out there. Plus, we measure the frequency of that as well.
Okay. So how high you sing and how low you
sing. It's not a real pitch detection as such, but you can have a curve on that. So you can't use it for notes because it's too slow, because what we're actually measuring is the frequency on top of the breath signal that is coming in. So we are using special formulas for that. Okay. And try any wind controller out there. Do me a favor. Grab it, play, and then make noise. Ooh, and we will see what will happen with the breath sensor. It's getting confused because the signal is always going below zero, and you can't put the frequency on. Try it. You can try it.
I will.
Yeah.
I will try.
There is so that's one of the things where the Photon comes in the picture. We have designed algorithms or CRIs in the firmware. So it's with firmware that we can upgrade it. And the new Photon incorporates many learnings of this version of this science fiction model. So the new model will be more a saxophone type of model. Okay? Yeah. With a reed shape like from a saxophone. So the tip of the reed, and with replaceable reeds. So if you're a trained saxophone player or trumpet player and you have good lip muscles, then you could put a stiffer reed in it. Okay, and if you're new, if you're a keyboard player and never have used an embouchure, right, then you can put a softer reed in that. Okay, and we can develop other type of reeds that we can insert into the antibacterial nose, because this material is antibacterial and the whole air channel is as well antibacterial, so very important these days.
Of course.
So the new Photon has that mini reed that is it has a detachable nose. And why is this important? Because we as well figured out that if you go in a store and you want to try an EV, then the store owner is saying, oh, yeah, this one you can maybe use, but it has been used by somebody else.
Oh, like that you mean?
Okay. Okay. So. So with the detachable nose, we are already solving a big part. So it's antibacterial. We can put it in a bath and everything. So there are no electronics in the nose, only light pipes. Nothing more, nothing less. So as well, the new Photon measures pressure immediately in the mouth. Now you want to say, so what? Every wind controller is doing that? No. No. What mostly happens is you're blowing in a tube, and then there is a kind of T connection on that tube where the pressure sensor is in it. Okay, and then you have a way to have everything flowing out, or you're blowing in two tubes, but the length is quite long still. Okay, so with the new Photon, we have, I think it's less than a centimeter, and we are measuring with a dedicated tube that goes straight to the pressure sensor, and we're doing some tricks we will not reveal in terms of moisture trapping and everything. So, and then we have another air channel which is quite open, okay, that is just for air, nothing more. We don't measure anything there, just air. But you can adjust it with a screw, so you could actually say, I want more resistance, like EV players like, and play, or I want free air. If you have more resistance, then it's more difficult to take air, of course, because then you can't use the breath in type of feature sufficiently, right? So, but because we are measuring straight in the mouth, you can actually adjust that level, and automatically we are measuring that. The speed between pressure in the mouth and measuring it On the pressure sensor is as well very fast. It's very direct.
Right.
So you have that snappy response which is out there. We're scanning 4,000 times a second.
Whoa. 4,000 times a second?
Yeah. And then we, how do you say that? Each controller can be sent in high resolution, Midi. The new Photon has as well an upper lip detection. So when you move with your lip more in front of the mouthpiece or back, it can detect that. So you can actually use that to switch between instruments. The other thing is because we are measuring now straight in the mouth, while with this one we didn't. Okay. The vocal amplitude and vocal frequency measurement is much better. So even the pressure dynamics that we get out of this is, I really love it. I really love it. And I'm not saying it because I have given Chris a hard time, and Pedro has given Chris a hard time, because we really want this to be a high-end, high-quality mouthpiece that becomes the standard in the market for all kind of wind controllers out there. So that people can really focus on good fingering units, or even design their own fingering units and integrate it with the Photon. But the idea of the Photon is actually that we can fit it on a Silvio, we can fit it on an Imeo, we can fit it on an Iwi, we can fit it on anything which is out there.